Hi everyone! Today we are going to make this easy forest painting with some leftover paints, so let's get started. I have a limited palette of leftover greens and blues from my last project, but I'm determined to use them to create a compelling forest scene. To begin the sky, I'm thoroughly wetting the entire sheet with clean water. Now, I'll use the lightest blue and quickly apply the first layer, leaving some spots. These white spaces will represent clouds, and as we've applied water underneath, they will have soft edges. To ensure the sky remains the lightest area of the painting, I'm sticking to a very watery blue mixture. And because these paints have been sitting for a few days, I first had to reactivate them. If you also have leftovers, always remember to cover them properly, and give them a light spritz of clean water before your next use. While I could mix in fresh paints or use more paints from my pans, I'm intentionally limiting myself to only these leftovers for this forest piece. Normally after completing a painting, I finish the paints by doing watercolor exercises, mini paintings, or sometimes fun doodles, but today I wanted to make these layered trees. I don't really like wasting any paint. I like to reuse it in one way or another, even if it's just a very small amount. Now the sky is fully dried, so I'm painting trees at the background with slightly darker blue. And for this I'm dabbing in the paint while leaving some gaps. When making the trees, try to make them in a triangular shape, because we are looking at them from below, so they will appear wide at the bottom and thinner at the top. While it doesn't look quite right yet, I'm not worried as it's in the background anyway, so we can add more trees in front. I'm rotating the paper now. This makes it easier for me to paint the trees, which I'm placing in different shape and sizes throughout the painting. If you like to apply masking tape for a neat border, use a rotatable surface. I personally think that it makes it easier to make the trees. Now it's time for the foreground trees. Since my paint supply is limited, it's hard for me, but I'm trying my best to make them lighter at the top and darker at the bottom. Here I'm using the darker green color. As the paint above is still wet, we'll get a softer transition. The difference between the two greens is subtle, but if you look closely you can see that the top of these trees is a bit lighter. And for this painting, I'm making the trees on the side at a slight angle, as I want all of them to point at the center of the paper. Here I've mixed more water to the lighter green to amplify the difference between the two pigments. Now I'm trying to intensify the darker areas by adding some blue to it. In order to achieve a natural look, I'm overlapping some trees to suggest some depth and keeping distinct distances between others to prevent a monotonous pattern. Now I've mixed all the colors that were left to make a darker pigment for the trunks. I'm painting the trunks while the tree layer is still damp, and I'm making some of it as it will not be fully visible, and parts of the trunk will be hidden behind the leaves. And in between these gaps we can make some branches. At this point, I almost ran out of most of the paints. So with the rest of it, I decided to add some splatters because the painting was feeling a bit empty to me. Initially, I was just planning to add trunks in the front trees, but later I also added them to the ones in the background with a slightly darker blue. And I would have added more pigment in them, but it was almost finished, which was actually the purpose of this painting. So I was happy that I was able to use all of the paints. If you enjoyed this video, you might also like this palm trees tutorial, so be sure to check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.